announcements I would like to review with you. The exits that are on board the Three Rivers Queen are located on the bow and stern of all three decks. That is the front and the rear of the vessel. These exits do have a slate raised sill to them, so please watch your step and travel between the doorways, and please use the handrails as you walk up and down any of the stairs. Life jacket lockers are located on the first deck bow, second deck stern, and third deck behind the bottoms. These life jacket lockers are clearly marked, and dotted instructions are located on the inside. There's also ring gates that are located on the first deck bow, second deck stern, and third deck behind the columns. Now, in the very unlikely chance of an emergency, I will announce instructions and procedures. If anybody aboard experiences a medical emergency, please notify one of our immediately. Due to Pennsylvania state law, smoking on the interior of the vessel is prohibited. However, you may feel free to smoke on the outside of the decks. We just please ask you to do so in a manner not too disturbed by the passengers around you, and to also please use one of the proper receptacles to dispose of any butts. Please do not throw anything into the river. If anybody has any questions or concerns about the safety or operation of the vessel, please feel free to contact any of our uniform crew. Restrooms on board the Three Rivers Queen are located on the bow at the first and second decks of the boat on the inside. And we also have two full-service cocktail bars on board today as well. We have a full-service cocktail bar on the first deck with Shauna downstairs. She does have a full bar with some variety of chip bags to choose from. And on the second deck, we do have Amanda that does have a full-service cocktail bar with a snack bar located at it as well. It does have hot dogs, nachos, a variety of bag chip items, as well as popcorn. If anybody on board has any questions concerning safety operation of the vessel, please contact anybody from crew. On behalf of myself and the crew aboard Three Rivers Queen, I do welcome you aboard and hope you enjoy cruising us. Thank you. Now please watch your ears. You're about to hear four very loud blasts from Twitter. Please hold your ears. Especially those of you down there on the second deck. It's very loud in the front of this boat. Please hold your ears. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome aboard the Three River Screen. Now we have just departed our Station Square dock, which is all along our right-hand side over here, and it is the home to our entire Gateway Clipper fleet, which we are proudly celebrating our 63rd season here aboard these Three Rivers. We got our start back in 1958 by a man named John Connolly, who along with his nephew, Captain Jack Gessling, had gone up to Lake Erie and purchased a small fishing vessel that was named the Bridget Ann. They brought that boat back down here to Pittsburgh, sailing a day and night for 2.5 weeks, and encompassing over 2,200 miles just to reach the city. They arrived here in Pittsburgh on May 16, 1958, changed the name of the boat to the Gateway Clipper, and sailed on its very first cruise the following day. In our first 4 months of service, we accommodated 25,000 passengers. The next year, they went out, bought 2 more boats, and the Gateway Clipper fleet was born. Over the course of our 63 years here, we have had many boats that have called the Gateway Clipper fleet home. However, we do currently run a 5-vessel operation that can accommodate up to 1,700 passengers at one time. This makes us one of the largest inland waterway fleets in the entire United States. Well, now at this time, I want to turn things over to our narrator for this cruise. His name is Alex, and he's going to speak to you from right up here on the third deck from right behind the boathouse. Take it away, Alex.
Thank you, Captain, and thank you, everybody, for coming out to join us this evening. This is our Sports and At Happy Hour special. So before I get started, we do have a couple of drink specials on board tonight, the Jolly Roger and my favorite, the Golden Anchor Lemonade. Ask about them at the bars on the first and second deck. So with that said, we're going to be talking about sports, sharing some unique facts about the city, and pointing out a few locations of interest along the rivers. Over on the right, you will see Station Square Center, at one point a thriving railroad station, hence the name. These days home to a number of excellent restaurants such as Buca de Beppo, Joe's Crab Shack, and Texas Day Brazil. The tracks you see running at the side of Mount Washington behind Station Square are part of the Monongahela Incline, which opened in 1870. More about the inclines later on. Pittsburgh is known as the City of Champions, but how exactly did we get that name? It was 1979 when the Pirates won the World Series in between two Steelers Super Bowl wins. The great Pirate Willie Pop Stargell was celebrating at Market Square with fans, where he was quoted as saying, "We are from the city that is nothing but champions," and the sentiment has stuck ever since. The Pirates, Penguins, and Steelers have a combined total of 16 championships to their names. 5 World Series for the Pirates, 5 Stanley Cups for the Penguins, and 6 Super Bowls for the Steelers. And unlike the Patriots, they didn't have to cheat to get 6. Around the same time in 1870 that the inclines were opening up to the public, what may be the first instance of women's competitive rowing events was taking place on this river. 16-year-old Lottie McAllis, who learned how to row in order to take her father to work across the river, took on Maggie Lou in a 1-mile challenge. The event was so notable that it drew reporters from as far away as Cincinnati and Chicago and attracted a crowd of 12,000 people. McAllis won the $2,000 purse, which in today's money would be about 41 grand. Another young person making a big impact in sports history was John Woodruff. From one of 12 children, he came from a family of which no member had even finished high school. And yet, there he was, a freshman at the University of Pittsburgh, attending on an athletic scholarship, when he qualified to compete in the 800 meter in the Berlin 1936 Olympics. 18 black athletes represented the U.S. at Berlin that year, and they dominated in track and field. In what was hailed as one of the most exciting races in Olympic history, Woodruff took the gold. American journalists praised the performance of African-American athletes such as Woodruff and Jesse Owens as a blow to the Nazi myth of Aryan supremacy. A bit further up the Mon, we would come near an area of the city long associated with hockey. Pittsburgh had the first artificial indoor skating rink and multi-purpose arena in North America. It was located in Shenley Park, present-day site of the University of Pittsburgh Frick Fine Art Building, and was constructed in the early 1890s, called the Shenley Park Casino. The facility was known for hosting the first organized hockey game in the city of Pittsburgh. Sadly, the 12,000-seat venue was very short-lived. Ammonia enabled it to be the first artificial ice indoor rink in the country, but that is also what caused it to explode. A leak in the ammonia pipe is believed to have mixed with grease and started a fire that destroyed the casino less than 4 years after its construction. The Duquesne Gardens opened its doors to the public 3 years after fire destroyed the casino. The Gardens, also located in Oakland, feature the largest indoor artificial ice rink in North America, with a surface area of over 26,000 feet, nearly 50 feet longer than most modern-day hockey arenas. Aside from the enormous rink size, the location also had another claim to fame. Around 1901, it is believed to be the birthplace of professional hockey. While passing through the region on his honeymoon, Canadian hockey player Arthur Six Smith stumbled across the Gardens and decided to stay. He, along with Arthur McSwiggan, are credited with creating the WPHL, the Western Pennsylvania Hockey League. In a then unprecedented move, they openly hired and paid their players. Athletes were actively recruited, some of them from Canada, who relocated to Pittsburgh, where they were now paid to play the game that they loved. It is believed that the American popularization of hockey can be traced back to one man, Arthur Six Smith, and the city of Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh was noted as being hockey crazy. Spectators would travel from far and wide to watch a game at the Gardens. And they commented that the type of hockey played in Pittsburgh was different. It was faster paced. There was a passion to the game. And at times it got downright violent, with brawls breaking out on the ice among both players and fans alike. If you were taking in a game at the Gardens, you could root for teams such as the Bankers, the Victorias, the Keystones, and the Professionals. Leagues and teams have changed over time, but what hasn't changed is Pittsburgh's love of hockey. Since 1990, the Pittsburgh Penguins have won 5 Stanley Cups, so there is one common factor in each Stanley Cup win: Mario Lemieux. Drafted by the Penguins in 1984, Lemieux debuted October that year and transformed the Penguins into a Stanley Cup winning team. Considered one of the greatest players of all time, Lemieux remains as scoring the second highest goals per game, assists per game, and points per game in NHL history. As the team began to struggle financially, Lemieux came to the rescue once again, this time as an owner, ensuring that the Penguins would remain in Pittsburgh. Since Lemieux became an owner, the Penguins have won 3 additional Stanley Cups. Little wonder then why Lemieux is known as the Magnificent One. The Penguins currently play in the PPG Paints Arena, but prior to that played in the Civic Arena. The Civic Arena was the first major sports retractable roof venue. However, because of the cost of repairs and maintenance, the feature was not often used. The Civic Arena was demolished over the course of a year, starting in 2011. Over on your left, you will see the new Allegheny County Jail. This was established in the 1990s to replace the old one built in 1888. The jail is also the source of an amusing story, giving Pittsburgh one of its Darwin Awards, the comedy awards handed out to people who remove themselves from the picture in sublimely stupid ways. In this case, one of the inmates of the jail had been watching too many Prison Break movies. One night he knocked out the glass in his cell, tied the bed sheets together into a rope, and climbed out. 2 problems with that plan. First of all, he was on the 10th floor and his bed sheet rope was only 20 feet long. Second, he didn't do a very good job knocking out the glass, so he only made it about halfway down before a shard cut through the rope, and he took the remaining 80 scenic feet to the concrete below. When traveling through Pittsburgh, you can't help but notice the number of bridges. In addition to being known as the City of Champions, Pittsburgh is also known as the City of Bridges, as there are 446 currently in operation. We actually surpassed Venice, Italy by about 30. Pittsburgh is also the home of many steep streets and, by necessity, many stairways. The layout of the streets and stairs was described by Pulitzer Prize writer Ernie Pyle as having been laid out by a mountain goat. Fair. Pittsburgh has around 740 sets of public stairways at the last count, more than any other city in the world. That comes out to about 45,454 total steps, with a combined distance of 18 miles. And as for the steep streets, San Franciscans like to claim that they have the steepest street in the U.S., but it's actually Canton Avenue here in Pittsburgh. Streets such as Canton Avenue have given rise to the Dirty Dozen, a unique bicycle race that began in 1983, covering 50 miles, including 13 of the steepest hills in Pittsburgh. Canton Avenue, of course, being one of them, the steepest by far. Downtown Pittsburgh features the Allegheny, Monongahela, and Ohio rivers. The Allegheny is sand and rock bottom, whereas the Monongahela has a mud bottom. A distinct line forms where the two meet to create the Ohio River, and viewing from the vantage point on top of Mount Washington gives you a unique perspective of this phenomenon. The rivers are an average of 16.5 feet deep, though areas of the water can be up to 50 feet deep due to dredging for materials used to make glass. Take a look behind the jail right now on the right, and you'll see an intimidating brown-black skyscraper with the letters UPMC at the top. That is the U.S. Steel Tower, Pittsburgh's tallest skyscraper, and part of a Pittsburgh tradition that whenever companies build a corporate headquarters here in the city, they ask the architect to showcase their product in the building's design. Honestly, I can think of worse marketing schemes. In the case of Pittsburgh Steel, they wanted to show off their Core 10 steel line, which is specially engineered to rust on the outside so that the inside stays protected for decades to come. It's a really innovative design that had one unforeseen complication. At the time the tower went up, Pittsburgh was still very polluted and experiencing an acid rain problem. Ordinarily, Corten steel takes about 2 to 3 months to rust, but the acid rain caused the tower to rust in about a week. And then it started shedding. By the time the city got a protective coating on the exterior of the tower, entire blocks of downtown Pittsburgh have been blanketed with rust dust. And the city had to spend tens of thousands of dollars just on replacing the sidewalk concrete. Which goes to show, no matter how smart you think you are, nature makes fools out of everybody eventually. Hey, it was here first. I'd now like to direct everyone's attention to a tan brick building with the name Huntington at the top. That is the Grant Building, a U.S. Coast Guard certified lighthouse, and not just for boats either. The antenna at the top is an airplane beacon, and every night it lights up with flashing green strobe spelling out the name Pittsburgh in Morse code, in case you forget where you are. Across the street from the Grant Building is One Oxford Place, a one-stop shopping center where you can pick up anything from a Rolex to a Rolls Royce. Feels like you're spending money just standing next to it. If you're curious about the shape of the tower, when it was first commissioned, the owners told the architect, "We want as many corner offices as possible." The architect's solution to that geometric challenge was to build 4 octagons and slam them all together. Good job, guys. You got your corner offices. Doesn't mean the views are all that good. The newest addition to Pittsburgh's skyline is the tower at PNC Plaza, easy to spot because of its sloped roof with solar panels. Built in 2016, it is the greenest skyscraper on Earth. Thanks to those solar panels and the building's energy-efficient design, it requires only as much electricity to power it in 1 month as 2 Pittsburgh households. Quite a far cry from our down and dirty days in the Industrial Revolution, no? In fact, Pittsburgh has become a leading city in the development of green technology over these years. Part of our reinvention after the steel boom concluded. If you look between the Grant Building and One Oxford Place, you will see a Gothic stone tower nestled among the skyscrapers. That is the old Allegheny County Courthouse and Jail, built in 1888 and mentioned previously. The courthouse still serves its original function and was also the site of several movies, including Mrs. Sophel, starring Diane Keaton and a pre-meltdown Mel Gibson, and The Silence of the Lambs. Right now, we are about to cross underneath the Smithfield Street Bridge, the oldest bridge in Pittsburgh at 140 years of age. In the 1990s, it was designated as a historic landmark of the city and restored to its original colors, which you see now, brown, blue, and gold. Which is unusual. You might have noticed that all the other major bridges downtown are painted bright yellow. City law says that they have to be painted that way to reflect Pittsburgh's Golden Triangle, the downtown financial district. With an obvious exception, of course, for our historic landmarks. On the right is the Monongahela Wharf, which until the 1980s was the home of the Gateway Clipper, now home to the cheapest parking in all of downtown Pittsburgh. And above that is a row of buildings that have been restored to look as they did a century ago. Building 247 with the white facade and green roof is where George Romero made his headquarters when filming Night of the Living Dead, one of my favorite movies and a classic of the horror genre. In fact, all of the movie's basement scenes were filmed in 247's basement. Interestingly, George got his start in filmmaking directing shorts for Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. He said that the scariest thing he ever filmed was Mr. Rogers Gets a Tonsillectomy. No doubt you've also seen the imposing-looking glass skyscraper with the spires on top. That is PPG Place, which stands for Pittsburgh Plate Glass. It was built in the 1980s to celebrate the company's centennial anniversary, and as part of that Pittsburgh tradition, build your headquarters out of your stuff. In this case, Pittsburgh Plate Glass wanted to show off their, well, I think it's pretty obvious, don't you? The building was also the site of a couple of movies, including The Dark Knight Rises and Inspector Gadget, starring Matthew Broderick, bringing the number of good things in that movie up to 1. Coming up on either side of the boat, you'll see a pair of dark, worn stone bridge piers. These are all that remain of the ill-fated Wabash Rail Bridge destroyed in the 1940s. At the time the bridge was torn down, the city crunched the numbers and figured out that removing the piers, more expensive than it was actually worth. So they just left them there in the river to become historic landmarks of the city. There was talk for a while of restoring the Wabash Bridge, but by the time they got around to it, downtown Pittsburgh had become so crowded there was no place to put in a connecting railway. As I mentioned, the piers are historic landmarks of the city, but they are up for private sale. So if you have a few million extra dollars burning a hole in your pocket, consider investing in a piece of Pittsburgh history. I've been asked by more than one person why anybody would buy those piers. What could you possibly do with them? What would be the point? Hypothetically, you could get away with building a house on top of them. Why? Why not? Directly ahead is Pittsburgh's most famous and infamous bridge, the Fort Pitt Bridge. And when I say infamous, oh yes, I am speaking from experience. It's a double-decker bowstring suspension design, each level with 4 one-way lanes of traffic merging into 2 one-way lanes of traffic. Combine that with the bridge being only 300 feet long and having more than 150,000 vehicles crossing it per day on average, and that math works out to the traffic on the bridge being a little bit... Now that said, driving on the bridge might not be a lot of fun, but exiting the Fort Pitt Tunnel on the left does give you one of the most breathtaking views of Pittsburgh's skyline anywhere. It's a view so great, in fact, it was featured in the film The Perks of Being a Wallflower. Couple quick sports facts. By the 1920s, Pittsburgh had produced 3 middleweight boxing champions. Between July 1939 and November 1941, 5 Western Pennsylvania boxers won championships in 5 of 8 traditional weight classes. And due to the shortage of players during World War II, the Steelers and the Eagles briefly joined forces to become the Steagles. How imaginative. Coming up on the right is the area of Point State Park, one of the most historically significant areas in the region, in no small part because this is where the city of Pittsburgh was founded, and it is the original real estate over which the French and Indian War was started. Obviously, there's a lot of history behind that, but we've only got an hour, so here's the Cliffs Notes. 1700s. Europeans found the point. French liked it. Set up shop. English beat them up. Took it off of them. Set up Fort Pitt at Point. Pittsburgh was born. There. That's all the stuff that's going to be on the test. At the very end of Point State Park, you can see its crown jewel, the water fountain. The fountain has an automatic wind sensor that controls the height of the spout to prevent splashing at water loss. Early reports from when the fountain was first constructed state that it had the capability to rise 200 feet in the air, though current estimates state a maximum of 150 feet depending on the wind. The fountain is fed from city water. The operating system holds 800,000 gallons of continuously circulating water. From 1978 to 2018, the point hosted the Three Rivers Regatta. The regatta featured F1 Series boat races, and when the races premiered in 1982, it was the first F1 powerboat race in the United States. Unfortunately, the regatta was canceled in 2019 due to financial issues, but will hopefully be making a return next season. Coming up ahead of us on the banks of the Allegheny River is Heinz Field, home of the Pitt Panthers and Pittsburgh's beloved Steelers. In 2001, the H.J. Heinz Corporation paid a pretty penny for the naming rights to Heinz Field. Does anybody know how much exactly? I'll give you a hint. Take a look at any Heinz ketchup bottle. There, the gentleman in the green shirt got it first. Heinz, $57 million. Not a coincidence, by the way. They actually planned that. In 2020, the NFL confirmed what Pittsburghers had known for 48 years. Franco Harris's fourth quarter catch, dubbed the Immaculate Reception by broadcasting legend Myron Cope, was the greatest play in NFL history. Playing at Three River Stadium, situated not far from Heinz Field, on December 23, 1972, the Steelers were trailing the Oakland Raiders 7-6. The Steelers, in only their second playoff game ever, faced 4th and 10 on their own 40-yard line with 22 seconds remaining in the game and no timeouts. Steeler quarterback Terry Bradshaw, under pressure from several Raiders linemen, threw the ball to the Raiders' 35-yard line toward halfback Reggie Fuqua. Raiders safety back Tatum collided with Fuqua just as the ball arrived, sending Fuqua to the ground and the ball sailing backwards several yards end over end. Steelers rookie fullback Franco Harris, after initially blocking on the play, had run downfield in case Bradshaw needed another eligible receiver. Harris saw the ball and scooped it up just before it hit the ground. He stiff-armed Raiders defensive back Jimmy Ward and went in for the touchdown. The Steelers won 13-7. There is a monument at Heinz Field celebrating what is quite possibly the greatest moment in football history. And now, here is an anecdote that to a Pittsburgher is going to make a lot of sense, but to an out-of-towner might seem a bit on the weird side. In 2005, Mr. Henry James Smith passed away. His death was not unexpected, however. He and his family had plenty of time to plan the funeral that he wanted. When entering the viewing room of the funeral home, friends and family were greeted to a scene like out of Game Day Sunday at the Smith home. In celebration of his life, Mr. Smith was leaning back in his recliner, wearing his black and gold silk pajamas, black robe, and slippers, with a Steelers blanket draped over his lap and a remote control in his hand. Meaningful family photos were on display all around him, along with his Steelers cap and a can of Pittsburgh's own Iron City beer. Across from him was a TV set displaying a non-stop loop of Steelers highlights. Goes to show, win, lose, or tie, a true Steelers fan bleeds black and gold even after they die. Steelers fans can be found all over the world, and Steeler bars found in California, Wyoming, Texas, Maryland, and everywhere in between. I assume most of you are familiar with the fact that Pittsburgh has an H in the name. It's kind of notorious. Although there was a time when we didn't have it. In 1890, the U.S. Board of Geographic Names, yes, this was a thing, decreed that all cities ending in "burg" had to drop their H in the spirit of uniformity. So for 21 years, Pittsburgh was federally recognized as being spelled Pittsburg, no H. However, Pittsburghers being Pittsburghers refused to comply. In 1911, the federal government finally relented and reinstated Pittsburgh's H, though there were a few who tried to conform with the federal mandate. An example can be seen in the holy grail of baseball cards, the 1909-1911 Series T206 Honus Wagner baseball card, or as some collectors call it, the card. Proper noun. Wagner was a Pittsburgh native who played the majority of his 21-season career for the Pirates. Initially, the card was printed as part of a tobacco promotion, but Wagner himself, not a fan of tobacco, so production was cut short. Today, it is estimated that fewer than 60 of these cards still exist. The card features Wagner wearing his Pirates jersey with no H in Pittsburgh, and the words Wagner, Pittsburgh printed across the bottom. Again, Pittsburgh is H-less. The most recent of these cars to sell was in 2016 for a record-setting $3.12 million. Because even rich people need hobbies. Unfortunately, because of the fireworks tonight, we're not going to be able to pass by PNC Park, I don't think. That said, in what has been named one of the 5 greatest moments in Major League Baseball history, Bill Mazeroski launched the ball that gave Pittsburgh its first World Series in 35 years. The Pirates entered Game 7 of the 1960 World Series, having been outperformed by the New York Yankees in the previous 6 games by a combined score of 46-17. The upstart Pirates were up 9-7, but lost the lead in the top of the 9th to the Yankees. Pirates second baseman, perennial All-Star and future Hall of Famer Bill Mazeroski led off the inning and hit a 1-0 pitch off of Ralph Terry, sending it over the left field wall. It will be the first time in history that a game-winning home run ended the World Series. A statue of Mazeroski was erected in 2010 near PNC Park, showing his exuberance as he rounds the bases. And what exactly happens to that game-winning home run ball? Andy Jerby, a 14-year-old at the time, retrieved the ball from the cherry trees in Shenley Park adjacent to the ballpark. Mazeroski signed the ball for him in the clubhouse, but the keepsake was lost during a neighborhood game a short time later. Collectors estimate that that ball today would be worth over $1 million. It's possible that somebody out there still is in possession of that ball with no idea the treasure they have on their hands. We could spend an hour just listing the names of the Hall of Fame athletes who played in Pittsburgh. From Honus Wagner forward, the city has had more than its fair share of stars. However, one name looms larger than any other: Roberto Walker Clemente. Clemente's style of play was described as electrifying, as he displayed a cannon arm, unmatched defensive prowess, and phenomenal hitting ability. His stature in Pittsburgh remains intact because of the way he played baseball on the field and for the manner in which he lived his life when away from the baseball diamond. Clemente played for the Pirates from 1955 to 1972, and during that time, he won 12 Gold Gloves, 4 batting titles, was a 15-time All-Star, the National League MVP in 1966, the MVP of the 1971 World Series, and the 11th player to collect 3,000 hits in 1972. Tragically, Roberto Clemente lost his life on New Year's Eve 1972. He was en route from Puerto Rico to Nicaragua to assist in an earthquake relief effort. His small plane was loaded with supplies and crashed after taking off. Not long after his death, Roberto Clemente was elected into the Baseball Hall of Fame. A trailblazer, Clemente was the first Latinx player to be elected to the HOF. In addition to the Pirates, Pittsburgh was also home to 2 other professional baseball teams. The Homestead Grays and the Pittsburgh Crawfords were both prominent members of the Negro League. The 1931 Homestead Grays and the 1932 Pittsburgh Crawfords are identified as being 2 of the most talented baseball teams in all of the sport's history, with each having multiple Hall of Famers on their respective rosters. Of the 35 players and executives from the Negro Leagues who have been inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame, 15 played in Pittsburgh, including the great Satchel Paige, Josh Gibson, and Buck Leonard. Cumberland Posey, who was also enshrined, owned the Homestead Grays. Now, at this time, I'm going to be taking a short break from the microphone, but I will be available up here on the 3rd deck to answer any questions that you may have. Feel free to stretch your legs, explore the boats, grab one of our drink specials down at the bar, and I'll be back in a few minutes to tell you about how Pittsburgh got the black and gold color scheme. See you then. Pittsburgh is the only major city in the U.S. in which all of our professional sports teams wear the same team colors, black and gold. This comes directly from the connection to William Pitt, for whom the city is named. The city council created a city seal for Pittsburgh based on the Pitt family coat of arms using a black background with gold coins. While all of our teams wear these colors now, that was not always the case. The first team to adopt the black and gold color scheme was founded in 1925, the Pittsburgh Pirates hockey team. Yes, you heard that right, Pirates hockey team, named after the baseball team. The owner had a brother on the Pittsburgh police force who would give team members badges of the city seal to use on their uniforms. Sadly, this team was short-lived. A few years later, they moved to Philadelphia and changed their name to the Traders. Quakers, I meant Quakers. The next team to wear black and gold was founded in 1933 by Art Rooney, the Pittsburgh Pirates football team. I trust you're picking up a pattern. This team also went through a name change and in 1940 became the Steelers. Ownership of the Steelers is still with the Rooney family to this day. The Penguins debuted in 1960 wearing blue and white. It wasn't until 1980 rolled around that the decision was made to unify all of our teams on the same color scheme. Initially, the Boston Bruins objected to this as they were the only other NHL team at that time wearing black and gold. However, the Penguins were able to produce photographic evidence that as far back as 1925, Pittsburgh's original hockey team wore black and gold. And so the request was granted. The Pirates, the actual ones, the baseball team, did not adopt black and gold until 1948, and they too went through a name change. Originally, they were the Pittsburgh Alleghenies. However, in 1891, they signed a player named Louis Bierbauer away from the Philadelphia Athletics. Philly did not take it well. They started referring to the Alleghenies as a team of thieves and pirates who stole other people's players away. Well, being Pittsburghers, the Alleghenies took what was supposed to be an insult and wore it as a badge of honor, and have been the Pirates ever since. Show of hands, is anybody here not originally from the Pittsburgh area? A few of you, it would seem. Well, I should let you know that it is not always easy to communicate with Pittsburghers, and not because we're bad communicators as a rule, but rather because we speak an unusual accent and dialect known as Pittsburghese. This has been the subject of serious study by linguistics students and professors at the University of Pittsburgh and Carnegie Mellon University. So what is Pittsburghese? Bottom line, we use a lot of words and phrases you won't find anywhere else in the English language. In fact, we are going to close out tonight's tour with a primer on how to speak Pittsburghese. To start with, the area to our left behind us is downtown Pittsburgh, but a local would refer to it as downtown. When addressing a group of people, we do not say y'all, we say yins, off of the Scottish Ewins. This is why die-hard Pittsburghers are sometimes called Yinzers. Everybody else knows of our football team as the Steelers, but locally they are called the Stillers. And the Stillers, under their previous head coach, like to invoke a force they called car power, or to everybody else, cower power. And of course, an essential for any black and gold fan, you've probably heard Pittsburghers talk about their double towel, or terrible towel, which was created by Myron Cove during the 1975 playoffs to encourage crowd participation. There's another popular blue-collar sport, bowling. Just roll a ball down an alleyway to knock down pins. In Pittsburgh, we call it bowling. If you go shopping in Pittsburgh, it'll probably be at one of our ubiquitous grocery stores, Giant Eagle, which Pittsburghers call Giant Eagle. Jineigggle. If you do go shopping, you won't pick up a cart, but you will get a buggy. Lots of bakeries offer a confection known as a moon pie or whoopie pie, depending on where you are. It's basically just 2 round pieces of chocolate cake with icing sandwiched in between. In Pittsburgh, we call those by the much more onomatopoeic term, gobs. As in the sound you make when you shovel one into your mouth, whole gob. If you like your eggs somewhere between medium and over easy, Pittsburghers call those dippy eggs. If you go to a Pittsburgh deli and ask for a sandwich with very thinly sliced ham, you would be asking for chipped ham. Also acceptable, chip chop. Everybody has rubber bands in their office, but Pittsburghers call them gum bands. Lots of people take relaxing strolls down by the creek, but Pittsburghers take them by the crick. If a Pittsburgher asks you to run a sweeper, they're not talking about a broom and dustpan, but rather a vacuum cleaner. That one actually makes a certain kind of sense. Mount Washington on our right is pronounced by Pittsburghers as Mount Washington. Something interesting about Pittsburghese is that we talk very fast in this accent, and as a result, we drop a lot of syllables when we do. For example, we don't say half an hour, we say half hour. Like one word spelled H-A-F-A-H-R. Similarly, if a surface is too wet and doesn't have a lot of friction to it, Pittsburghers would call that slippy. When asking friends out to lunch, we don't say, "Did you eat yet?" because we do not have time for that many syllables. Instead, we say, "Did yet?" J-E-E-T, J-E-T. And finally, my personal favorite in Pittsburghese, somebody who puts their nose in your business or just doesn't know how to mind their own. We would call that person nabby, from the Yiddish word nebbish. Now, with all that said, we are approaching the Gateway Clipper Fleet docks and will be disembarking in a few minutes. Myself and a few other members of the crew will be there at the docks to wish you a happy farewell as you depart. All forms of gratitude are accepted and deeply appreciated. So on behalf of myself and the rest of the crew of the Gateway Clipper Fleet's Three Rivers Queen, I'd like to thank you all for coming out to join us tonight, and I hope you have a beautiful weekend still ahead of you. Thank you, everybody.